So apparently somebody took the first 12 seconds as what? Their tax? Their tariff? I mean, that happens, right? As I was saying, lone wolf shooter has a particular implication. I'm sure somebody thinks it looks nice on letterhead, right? But I'm more concerned with something that used to be identified as a necessary thing and perhaps even the kind of thing within which proficiency is highly sought. It's called troubleshooting. My understanding is the implications where what you do is you analyze something and you look for worst case scenarios. And depending upon the interest that you intend for that area to serve, you may have a different consideration of what the worst case scenario is. How's it going to be applied? What's the worst thing that can happen? So you go through the different stages in its development and its rollout to see where there could be points of exploitation so that then it could end up either resulting in calamity, or it could be infiltrated, or it could break down, or perhaps it needed some sort of support or buttress in order to prevent against it being exploited. It used to be called troubleshooting. Now, this is something I heard about a lot when I was growing up, right? Because it's what my father did. It wasn't just what my father did, it's what other people he worked with did. Primarily, my understanding is it involved computer programming, or it involved some sort of network support when it came to computer programs. But I have a concern and a feeling that after the Clintons interfered themselves in the situation ongoing in Ireland and Northern Ireland, that troubleshooting got really mixed up with a failure to apply the Illinois Constitution. Have you ever read the Constitution of the state of Illinois? There were some changes that were made after a constitutional convention in the 1970s. It was actually absolutely the right time to have that convention and to make those constitutional changes. I think somebody had a miscommunication about what eliminating poverty means. I think what they thought is they just start shooting poor people. I think their understanding of eliminating poverty was to identify people as poverty and eliminate them. And unfortunately, in the ensuing years, there hasn't been an attempt to be responsible with that kind of misrepresentation. Very comparable to troubleshooting, right? Troubleshooting doesn't mean, oh, she's trouble. Pop, right? And that's going to bring up the concern we have now, which is consideration of you as an asset in somebody's portfolio versus performance of job duties, including job duties you've signed up to perform, presumably in an effort to provide for the public welfare, right? So let's talk about the difference between right now being a cop in Houston and being a cop in Dallas. Because if you're running scenarios on a woman like me, maybe because you're dissatisfied with my contribution to your local pension system, then I already know we're working with different variables. The Dallas Fort Worth swap wants to go to Gitmo, right? But Houston is still on the line for Afghanistan. And those give us a very, very different set of not only risk matrices that we're dealing with, but also a very different consideration of what would be acceptable in terms of trying to identify and typecast certain people in order to offset what is inevitably going very, very bad in another part of the world, right? And it's compounded by the fact that this displacement of responsibility to Dallas has occurred in conjunction with a declaration in June of 2017 regarding recovery of Cuban assets that unfortunately were only able to be recovered when you intentionally misidentified the perp, right? Now, I understand that if these are considerations that you need to be able to address in the field real time, then there may be some sort of stress put on you in performance of your job role. If you've agreed to a process of automating this, then you need to understand, unfortunately, I came from Chicago. And I had already talked to, or rather identified, a potential very significant risk problem going on with permitting law enforcement to be a part of an intentionally flawed automated system, because whoever it was setting municipal priorities did not want to reveal the illegal activities occurring when it came to the city administration, so they just used the police, right? And the police became very, very opportune as a focal point for allowing for communities that were being intentionally economically dispossessed while they were also being economically targeted to have them focus on the police instead of actually holding the city administrators accountable. I personally don't agree with that. I have more than 4 years of practical experience of how badly that goes. See, if the chief of police comes up to you and tries to hustle you for an act of prostitution because he thinks you're homeless, and then you don't end up going for it, and then a couple months later, you bust the mayor trying to hook up a huge prostitution syndicate during a major event, well, who ultimately is that supposed to fall on? Is that the fault of the chief of police that tried to recruit that one woman for that event down the road? Or is it the fault of the mayor that authorized that chief of police to do certain things and then had everybody keep their fucking mouth shut while they worked it out during the event? These are very, very important and compelling problems, right? I know after a year, I'm supposed to have been vulnerabilitized, and I'm supposed to be trying to figure out how to respond to what I just understood was another threat levied against me, right? We already ran you through the circuit. You already know this by now. You still keep refusing to do what we've programmed you to do. The problem is, you're not troubleshooting me. And because you're not troubleshooting me, you keep fucking it up. And the problem ends up persisting. I'm not the problem. The problem is the bad automation. And if the people who should otherwise be qualified to deal with it because they think they deserve to get paid and protected at the level of people who can deal with it, if they're not doing their jobs, then they need to be taken care of outside of taking that job from somebody that knows how to do it. Now, if you need a quota in terms of demographic experience indicators, this is what you got to understand, right? In your model, it's not just about the controller. And if you're trying to claim some sort of demographic experience indicator credit because you get to control a different classification of asset, I already know how that works. I filled the quota. I fill every quota, right? And it's a big problem because you don't like to have to report in my tax bracket, right? Too bad. Because if you don't do that, you're not going to be able to get what you need to do your job. And that makes it very difficult for all of us in a whole systems approach, doesn't it? So I want to thank you very much for giving me this opportunity this morning to clarify things. Troubleshooting does not mean you screwed up somewhere else in the pipeline. So you got to figure out who you can pop off today in order to get the insurance to cover you there, because you didn't bust a criminal somewhere else. And that's why I'm not going to play into this mercenary diatribe against the police, right? We don't need to eliminate the police. They need to be doing their job. There's too many of them commensurate with the crime that's not getting busted. And this isn't just a matter of training. I got your damn manual. I got your damn manual right here on my desk. I know exactly what you're supposed to be doing by law. Why aren't you doing it? Do you have any idea what the deficit of every major municipal police department, at least in the state of Texas, is right now as of May 28, 2021? I'm not just talking about how you fill your racial quotas for your pension system, right? Because there's other indicators and qualitative data that all of us need. So I look forward to you guys understanding just how important you are for the global economy and getting that motivation you need to step into your highest self. Have a great day.